are joining us for another instalment of the Renters' Rights Bill Landlord Survival Guide, powered by Title Guardian. And for this instalment, I'm delighted to be joined by Richard Finan, who is MD of Addept Insurance Services. And Richard, I was really looking forward to speaking to you because there's so many different parts of our sector. Obviously, you know, we're thinking about landlords, but there's lenders, there's insurance services. They've all been affected by the Renters' Rights Bill. So what was your initial thoughts when you heard about it?
The first thing is I wouldn't say it was an absolute shock.
Well, we knew it was in the pipe, didn't we?
Exactly. And a lot of the changes, are particularly around repossessions, have been rolled out throughout the rest of the UK already. So I think it was anticipated. It was just a case of when rather than if.
One of the main products for landlords is rent guarantee insurance, which I've always advocated. I think it's a no-brainer. I believe that because of the Renters' Rights Bill, it's going to become a lot more mainstream product, which actually I think is a good thing for you guys. But, you know, how are you planning for the change in possession proceedings? Obviously, it's going to put the price up of the RGI.
There are two things that impact on price of insurance, two rating factors effectively, frequency and severity. How many claims are there and how much those claims are going to cost us. The reality is that the claim severity hasn't come down since COVID. So during COVID, we obviously had the ban on possession orders, the backlogs through the courts and also the backlogs of bailiffs. And we're only really starting to come out of that now. And there's massive disparity between different courts in different parts of England and Wales. So the prices of rent guarantee insurance have been kept high, much higher than they were pre-COVID, because the claims severity hasn't come down. The changes to the possession process that are being introduced by the bill certainly not going to shorten the possession times. They probably, in fact, they will increase them, but they're already at an overinflated level because of the COVID impact.
And I'm guessing that if rent guarantee insurance does become a mainstream product and a lot more landlords take it up, then that will help keep the cost down, I guess, because more landlords are using it. Yeah,
so insurance is around spreading risk, and the more landlords that buy the insurance, then the less what we call adverse selection is created. And therefore we're not just covering the riskier tenancies, we get a good spread of risk.
That's a good point, because with the Section 21 it was relatively straightforward in terms of the process of gaining possession. Now with the Section 8 and the different grounds and the courts and everything, as you've alluded to, it is going to take a lot longer. And the costs to the landlord, if with a non-paying tenant, are going to rise significantly. And this is why I think that, you know, it's going to be a must for landlords to have this type of insurance. They'd be foolish not to, and it's tax deductible as well.
Yeah, we immediately will have an extra month on the rent payments because we now need to wait for there to be 3 months arrears rather than 2. We also then have an extra 2 weeks on the notice period, so we've automatically added 1.5 months to our rent guarantee payments.
Yeah, exactly.
One of the challenges we've had as an insurance industry, particularly rent guarantee insurance, is that there's no actual data to tell us what the impact is going to be. We were very hopeful with the last Parliament that they would keep to their word and reform the courts before the bill was implemented.
Which made sense.
It made a lot of sense. I mean, the courts are struggling now, and this is only going to make matters worse. If you imagine half of the cases, possession cases going through currently are an accelerated process where there's no court hearing, we're now turning all of those into heard cases. So where are the extra courtrooms, where are the extra judges, where are the extra civil servants coming from? I get there's an investment in technology to help that, but they don't have a great track record, the courts, of rolling out new technology. And there's even been problems with the Section 21 process in the past where the new IT systems have failed and cases have been lost, which have actually extended the possession time on the Section 21. So there's a lot of factors that we don't know. We are very reliant on changes and reform within the courts.
So let's talk about rent guarantee insurance as a product, because I shouldn't assume that everybody knows what it is. Just tell us the benefits of this type of insurance.
It's very straightforward. If you have a tenant that is in your property and they are not paying the rent, the rent guarantee policy will cover the rent for the landlord during that time. But it's incredibly important that running parallel to that is a process to end that situation. And to end that situation, you have to evict the tenant. You can't leave a tenant in the property not paying the rent with an insurance policy covering it instead. So the policy falls into two parts: rent guarantee and legal expenses insurance. So the legal expenses insurer will work with law firms to regain possession of the property for the landlord as quickly as possible. And once that possession has been regained, the rent guarantee payments stop.
And is there a time limit on how long the rent will be paid for?
Yes, and it varies by different provider and different product and how much premium you pay. There were policies that would be capped at 6 months rent previously, but more because of COVID and probably in preparation for the bill, most policies now provide at least 12 months cover.
Oh, okay.
It would be unusual to see a possession case go on for more than 12 months, but they do happen.
Yep. And they could happen even more with the backlog and people using the new grounds to gain possession. So what would happen with existing rent guarantee insurance policies? Will they automatically convert to cover what's happening in the renters' rights bill, or will they end and the landlord will have to start again afresh?
No, I would expect all policies to continue.
Okay.
Policies traditionally run annually and are renewable, so there may be some new conditions that are added to the policy at the renewal date after the reforms have become law. Some policies operate on a monthly basis, and it would be likely that at a given point in time there might be some changes to the policy made. I don't think there'll be significant changes, but there's more responsibility on the landlords within the reforms. So the policy needs to be clear that landlords must meet their legal obligations under the tenancy law, as well as tenants, for the policy to perform.
Of course. In fact, I was going to ask you, do you feel that the qualifying requirements for the tenant will increase because of the enhanced risk that the Renters' Rights Bill poses? Because, you know, there's certain tenant demographic that you won't accept.
There's two conflicting forces at work with tenant referencing. As a rent guarantee insurer, we would like the most comprehensive checks on the tenants as possible. However, the reality of life as a letting agent is that you need to be able to turn over your applications as quickly as possible. So there has to be a compromise. There's been a significant shift to the way that references are completed through open banking. And open banking is excellent at showing us the history of the tenant. As a rent guarantee insurer, I'd like to know, or I'd like to have some certainty about what's going to happen in the future. So there has to be a conversation with distribution partners, with letting agents, and with referencing companies. So I think that's something that will have to be looked at. But I'd also make the point that with tenant referencing, it tells us a little bit about the letting agent. If it's a letting agent that is doing the lowest cost, quickest type of reference possible, we would rather have a letting agent that's actually spending a bit more time.
Doing a full raft of checks.
Exactly. So it may start to evolve that becomes a factor in our rating. The more comprehensive referencing that's completed, perhaps we can provide some premium discounts.
Well, that's really interesting, and we have another video with a letting agent, Teresa from Savills, and we talked extensively about, you know, how tenant referencing is going to have to become more robust, because landlords don't want to face having to gain repossession of their property if they can at all help it. And that kind of chimes in with that, you know, working with a reputable regulated agent, maybe a member of RICS or Property Mark, you would take that into consideration with the premium by the sound of it. So that's very interesting to know. I didn't know that. I wondered if we could maybe talk about other types of insurance for landlords and indeed tenants, because with the Renters' Rights Bill, there's a new position on pets, and tenants should take out pet insurance themselves. How can landlords ensure that they do that, and how can landlords ensure that they're maintaining that policy?
Well, that's a point that's very close to my heart. So we, as Addept Insurance Services, we have just launched a new product specifically to cover landlords for damage caused by their tenants' pets. And it's been built in anticipation of the Renters Reform Bill, but it actually is there to fulfil a gap that already exists. We've spent 11 months building this product and doing lots of research, speaking to lots of interested parties within the private rented sector. Our initial idea was exactly what you just described, a policy that a tenant could buy to demonstrate to the landlord that there's protection there. When we sat through a number of workshops, it became quite obvious to us quite quickly that wasn't going to work. And the reason for that is that what the insurance is there to do is to protect the landlord from the damage that could be caused by the pet.
Yep.
If the tenant is the owner of the policy, for want of a better word, they're the beneficiary, then the landlord doesn't have any automatic right to access that policy. There's also no certainty that the tenant renews the policy year on year. We then looked at whether we could make the landlord an interested or an insured party to it, but it just became very complicated. So we always did a U-turn on it, on our design, and we decided to make it a product that the landlord can buy, they are in control of. But the key for us is that it has to be affordable to the tenant, and it has to be distinguishable from the other insurances that the landlord buys. So we currently sell it, or it will be sold, as an add-on to a landlord's buildings policy, but it's separate, so the landlord can show the tenant what they paid for it, and it's priced to ensure that it doesn't prevent tenants from moving their pets into the property. We absolutely agree, and I'm a pet owner of cats, dogs myself. We absolutely agree. Happy tenants equals happy landlords. Tenants' pets are a massive contributor towards that.
Quite.
But we also have to accept that, unfortunately, pets, puppies, kittens can be naughty. It can cause damage. I can look at my house and we can point out at least a dozen places where skirting boards have been chewed and carpets have been plucked. So it does happen. So it's really finding the right balance that looks after the landlord but doesn't make this onerous on the tenant.
And obviously you would have to take into account the type of pet, because a hamster in a cage is going to have less impact on a property than you know, an Alsatian dog or something, or we've heard of micro pigs and things like that being kept. You know, what is a pet?
Well, our product is called Not for Lions.
Oh, okay.
So that's kind of the benchmark.
Okay.
Anything lower than a lion is okay.
Well, actually, do you know what? I'm thinking that a hamster in a cage probably couldn't cause any damage anyway. So
They can escape.
gnaw at wires and things. Well, that's fantastic. What I'm hearing through these interviews, and I do think it's actually very positive, is that there's going to be a lot more products for landlords to help them manage the enhanced risks that are posed by the Renters' Rights Bill. I regard that as very positive, because insurance is so important. It's better to have it and not need it than need it and not have it. I've learnt that at my own expense. And obviously it's all tax deductible as well. So I think it's good that landlords should be on the lookout for these kind of products to help mitigate their risk. So it's very good to hear about that. I guess just as we close this out, Richard, Title Guardian are sponsoring this landlord education, and I know you agree how important and valuable it is to have these kind of presentations. What is it that you love about Title Guardian and how it mitigates landlord risk?
So for some time, rent guarantee policies, or the legal expenses part of them, some of them have included cover for landlords where their identity is stolen. And there's data to show that landlords are more exposed to identity fraud than other sectors.
Particularly with empty properties and people getting access to addresses and things.
That product, however, is reactive. Until Title Guardian came along, there hasn't been anything to try to stop it happening in the first place, or at least give you an early warning that it's happening. So we felt that Title Guardian was an absolute perfect fit, for what we're trying to do in terms of protecting the landlord when something goes wrong. That's what we're all about.
Prevention is better than cure.
Absolutely, yes. So we now have the best of both worlds. With Title Guardian, we can hopefully stop it happening before it happens, or at least find out about it very, very quickly. And then we're there to pick up the pieces when it needs to be.
So you've actually brought Title Guardian into your kind of suite of landlord extras.
We are
haven't
in the
you?
process of doing that, yes.
Wow, that's amazing. Excellent. I guess just final question then, do you have any other tips how landlords can survive the renters' rights bill? Because that's what our video is really all about.
I think the tip is don't be fearful of it. 95% of tenancies go well.
Yes.
Good tenants and good landlords. There are those that go wrong. Seek good advice and good help from professionals.
Yep.
When they do go wrong, which is rare, but they do, they can go wrong in quite a big way. So talk to the professionals.
Yeah, very, very good advice. And also do take advantage of the products that we've been discussing that are out there to help mitigate risk.
No.
All right, well, thank you so much, Richard, for joining me. I've really enjoyed our conversation. I've learnt a lot. And also just to remind everybody that we do have the Renters' Rights Bill Landlord Survival Guide ebook, which accompanies this video series. And I will put a link below the video so you can download it and read it at your leisure, because there is a lot to take in, isn't there? It is kind of ongoing as well. So the ebook will be updated as the legislation becomes more kind of firmed up, shall we say. So do keep an eye on the ebook going forwards, download it, and you can join me again for another video on this topic as part of our video mini-series powered by Title Guardian. So I'll see you soon, but thank you for Richard.
Thank you.